I think it's another important thing you got to ask people when you're talking about news and politics. Where do you get your news? Because it's kind of weird. I don't like asking people that question. Where do you get your news? It's like, well, am I ashamed of where I get my news? So let me ask you, like, who is your trusted news source? Because trusted news source doesn't really mean anything anymore, unfortunately. So who do you trust for your news?
I mean, I think that like trusted news, like you have to acknowledge that, like you said, everyone has their bias. There's no news source where I'm like, this is the silver bullet, this is what's going to be true all the time. No, I get your news from a variety of sources. I say I like treating news like Wikipedia, where have your tent poles that you like. I like Axios a lot just because it presents news in a very easy to understand and clear format. It doesn't cover as much as you would like, but I like jumping off from there. I just follow a lot of reporters whose reporting I like on Twitter. And that's where I get a lot of it from. I get it from podcasts. I get it from, and I watch right-wing media too. One, because I got to stay informed about what my opposition is arguing in order to make those sort of videos. But also because I want to make sure I'm not just, in an eggshell, in a bubble, and making sure that I see every news story from different angles. I can't say there's, one in particular besides Axios. I'll just read in the morning, and Twitter in general. But I encourage everyone to do that, because if you're getting your news source from one place, it's gonna be biased. It doesn't matter what the place is. If you think your place is perfect, you're wrong. And I'll say that about my favorite places too. So I preach variety as opposed to any one specific thing.
No, definitely variety. Like my YouTube feed is mostly just people I like, independent media. If I was going to read, I do like Matt Taibbi. I do like Glenn Greenwald. There are a few others who I think journalists are really good. I even like Mehdi Hassan, to be honest. I know him and Matt Taibbi went back and forth, but Mehdi Hassan has had very, very good segments that I've seen covered on like YouTube, like a Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, or Kyle Kalinske with Secular Talk, or even a Jimmy Dore, who I think is silly at times, but if you can get past his hyperbole, there's some good stuff in there. And then there's like, I used to actually not be a fan is a bad word, but I used to have a lot more respect for Steven Crowder. And it's just recently, the past maybe 2 or 3 years, it's like he's just gone so far off the deep end. Like the Change My Mind stuff, I think was very, very good and very, very useful. But other than that, it's kind of like, man, you are just dog shit. And I hope he knows he's dog shit, because he's just dog shit.
It's funny you say that. For obviously, like, was it last week? I was going off on Steven Crowder a lot for obvious reasons, but like I had the same. I never agreed with Steven Crowder really on anything, but I did like that content that he made, the Change Your Mind. I watched it to learn the techniques that he used to make these engaging debates. And sometimes he was fairly respectful and debating in good faith. Sometimes he was using techniques that were a little shady. Anytime you go onto a college campus and debate college students when you're a fully informed grown man who does this for a living, you're fighting with an advantage. And people should recognize that when watching it. But I did feel like back in those days, he was at least his own man doing his own thing. Whereas I feel like nowadays he's drank the Kool-Aid too much, and has become what he used to stand against, which happens to a lot of people. But yeah, I definitely think that I don't think he argues in good faith as much as he used to.
Well, in his defense, he would like to debate the professors, right? But the professors won't see him. The colleges don't want him there. And, you could say he's out debating the college kids. Well, that's who you should be talking to. That's who anybody should be talking to kind of get different viewpoints that he has. Now, I skip a lot of his stuff, but there's some things occasionally I go, okay, that's a good point, right? There's some things you can take from everything. Like I'll go back to Jimmy Dore, the Nord Stream pipeline. From the very beginning, he was like, the U.S. did this. Now it's like, great, Jimmy, where's the evidence? He's kind of like, I know it, here it is, but there's never like the full evidence. And yeah, a few months later, there is some evidence. So yeah, I guess he was kind of right, maybe, but you still need that evidence from a news source. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't just watch him, because you can, as long as you understand someone's biases and realize, okay, this is hyperbole, you can still kind of pick and cherry pick the truths from an argument from anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And, Jimmy Dore, as you said, everyone's going to be biased. You can appreciate people that you disagree with and people that you agree with as long as you acknowledge both of their biases. And there's value in learning what other people are saying, even if it's wrong. Or as you said, he's jumping to a conclusion. That just because he's jumping to a conclusion doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong. And I'm not going to speak on the Nord Stream because I haven't read up on it recently enough to say that's a hot topic to make declarative statements on, like we're just saying. But I do think that everyone, it's best to assume that someone's acting in good faith. It's best to assume that the person's making a legitimate argument, and that because if you just dismiss it, then you're not challenging your own beliefs. Like if you just dismiss everything a conservative says or everything a liberal says, and you're like, well, of course you say that, you're part of the X group here. You're not challenging your own beliefs. You're not actually testing them. And you should be listening to people outside of outside of your own side of the aisle, right?